And the integration of AI from cloud to edge is revolutionizing telecom networks, driving automation, efficiency, and enhanced customer experiences. This panel with leaders from Intel, Ribbon, and Rakuten Symphony will explore how telcos can harness AI across cloud, core, and edge infrastructure. And panelists, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks for being here bright and early on the third day here at the event in Barcelona. So we appreciate everyone making it here in your time. Caroline Chan, as always, thanks for your time. Appreciate you participating.
This is our 15 years doing this together.
I think it might be, yeah, I think that's accurate. Maybe minus COVID, maybe 13, but... Caroline, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. Certainly a lot of adoption in the AI space for telcos. It changes sort of year over year. We've had these conversations again each year this time. What has changed since last year?
I think from the industry-wide perspective, I've noticed that we started with a lot of our AI working for telco, optimizing, automation, running something. I think our panelists will have something more to say about it. But there's one trend also popping up is how do I use the telco, the infrastructure, the location that we are in. We're typically at a very critical edge locations, using that to service using Gen AI to service enterprises. Mm-hmm. It's becoming a monetization conversation in addition to optimization. That conversation has really started changing the business model. Mm-hmm. So in addition to my day job at Intel, I also serve as a president of TIP, as on the board of CTI and ADIS. That is a very distinct progress I think we made to not just think about using AI and Gen AI, agentic AI to modernize our industry, but how does our industry play a role in the overall advancement of AI as a service for different verticals. And that triggered a lot of interesting conversation and business model-wise.
Ram, I know you have a lot to say about this increased adoption of AI by telcos.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was just talking to the panelists before we got here. The traffic has been great this year, but more importantly, the discussions have been more qualitative, right? Mm-hmm. And AI is becoming mainstream. More importantly, AI ops, right? And customers are not looking at this, and telcos are not looking at this as an afterthought. It's being built into the architectures, not bolted on, as I call it. It's built in. AI ops is becoming mainstream in terms of just the CI/CD, the terminology that we've been throwing around for a few years. It's becoming real now, right from software delivery to deployment to operations. It's all being automated because there's a lack of people resources to manage such workloads, and automation is a key to all of this. So I'm seeing this really play out in a nice way, and it's becoming real at this time.
And Vivek, drivers for AI adoption for telcos?
I think Carolyn hit upon a key point that you don't just look at telcos now consuming AI, they're also enabling the consumption of AI by other verticals and other industries. There's good reason for that. They have the infrastructure, they have the capacity, they have the edge locations. And it also serves as a monetization channel. In terms of the drivers for AI, I think there's two, maybe three very key ones that we're at least engaging in conversations with customers as Rakuten Symphony when we go and talk to them. They're a combination of run and conserve, right? That's one bucket. So the run part is how can I use things like predictive maintenance, fault management, correlation, etc., to reduce the cost of operations of the network. But it's not just a cost imperative. The quality of the network goes up with that. The second one on the conserve is around energy management. We will be rolling out in production this year on the Rakuten Cloud Native platform deep learning algorithms that have already been tested on real network data at some scale. And they are delivering on an average at the cross-cluster level about 25% energy savings across the network, which is significant. Even if you have a change in traffic patterns over time and you get to about 10% saving, that's a big saving for an operator across the year. And this is just at the cloud platform with two very important call-outs. We didn't change a single line of code in the RAN workloads or other apps running on the cloud. This was just the cloud layer intelligently switching C states on the Intel silicon. And the second is when we've done samples, and we've been running this when we did the first set of tests on download speeds on 5G, etc., because we wanted a real world use case, not a hypothetical use case. We did a talk yesterday. We actually showed the graph, over 7,000 samples on a rolling window basis every hour for a couple of weeks. You actually have no perceptible difference in the end user's experience on the download speed, but you end up saving about 10 to 25% energy. So two very distinct areas which are intrinsic to the telco, both in terms of the quality of the network, the cost of operations, but also energy. And the last bit in terms of the drivers is the monetization angle. So we are in conversations with a lot of telco operators who are now truly looking how to monetize their infrastructure. This is both in the telco segment, but also in some enterprise verticals globally, where they have the backhaul, they have the capacity, they have the compute at the edges. And for lack of a better word, they're becoming infrastructure companies who are now cloudified, and they want to do multi-tenancy on it. So I think that's pretty much what we're seeing.
Yeah, agree.
Ram, of course, Vivek mentioned a few of the AI innovations for telecom infrastructure, but from your perspective on the software side, what are some of those innovations from your side?
No, this is where there's been a lot of evolution from a software perspective. Caroline can talk about hardware in a bit, but in terms of software, we're now getting into what we call small language models, which are really specific to telcos, not like all industries around the globe, but really specific to telcos. So we're getting to those small language models with a retrieval augmented generation, which means we are feeding in many data sources, including documentation, including past history of your network, right, in terms of issues you've faced, issues other customers have faced. We're creating a common data pool where people can get these data sources and do predictive analytics like Vivek was saying here. And also not just stop at operational simplification and savings, but get into monetization, which is key. As we see ARPU stagnating and so on, especially in the mobile world, how do we monetize AI and give better services to customers, to end customers, and thereby utilizing telcos AI not just for their own use, but for the enterprise's use and the end customers' use. So I'm seeing a lot of changes on the software side from an AI perspective. The second aspect is we've been talking again about digital twinning, a concept which has been talked around a lot, but really not much has been done, but that's coming to fruition now, where you now take a twin of your physical production network and then take it into the lab, then now you can simulate against that with performance optimization use cases, energy efficiency that Vivek was talking about, and also into monetization and operational use cases where you can launch new services quickly now with this digital twin. So there are multiple facets of software changes that are happening all in parallel.
And Caroline, on the hardware side?
So when we started, everybody think if you want AI, Gen AI, you need a GPU. In reality, what Ram just said, talk about the small language model. In the telco world, many times the model is very specific to the particular vertical. In our case, telco, sometimes it is a specific enterprise wants to keep customize the large language model for their own. So Intel in this show actually launched our Intel 6, which is a Xeon SoC with a built-in AI accelerated instruction set in it. In other words, you don't need a large GPU at your cell site. Think about the economic saving, the power savings, and you achieve the result that you need, especially for edge inferencing, and many times is even what we call edge training. So, like Ram, you mentioned about all of the rack that's needs going in, and not just the documentation, including speech is now coming into it. So what we try to see is a much more economized model and from a CPU perspective, we have built-in instruction AI acceleration set, and many times have an integrated GPU as well. So what I'm observing is that the industry is moving forward. You don't always need a large array of GPU, expensive CapEx, as well as power hungry, but you start adapting your CPU platform for a lot of the edge inferencing, edge training, very specific use cases that we need on telco and on edge. And that is a significant progress. In addition to what Ram said, we're also putting out a developer kit specifically for telco, for VRAM, for example, to fast track the software development that Ram and other eco partners are doing.
Vivek, back to you. Certainly, there's some AI use cases out there for network operations at the edge. You touched on a couple of things just earlier, but can you give us maybe a real-world use case in that space right now?
Sure. So, for example, if I just look at what we're doing with customers within the current sphere of what we have as platforms, again, there's a different set of AI use cases depending on where you're trying to achieve what outcome and based on what data set. So if I look at the edge, for example, and this goes back to Carolyn's point about you don't necessarily need a truckload of GPU all the time to do anything just because it has the word AI in it. So if you're doing inferencing at the edge, and the edge is the source of the data, and your use cases, for example, video surveillance, require you to give pretty much real-time decision making about something. So security is one such use case. We have now live deployments where we're taking video feeds and are doing detection for various things near real time, and that's running on a really small footprint because it's using a partial availability of the compute capacity in the storage. We've actually got some new partnerships announced this year, some of them just around the hall. If you walk over, for example, to the Wind River studio, you'll see that they've got a example of a live traffic feed running on their cloud platform, but using our stateful storage on cloud native, and it's doing real-time detection on traffic, and that's on a tiny edge footprint. The same thing's happening, for example, when you move from the edge a little bit towards the core, you're now able to do a lot of aggregation of fault and ticket data to do predictive alerts to the NOC, where you can go down to the node level and tell them on a sliding window saying in the next 48 hours this guard is likely to go down, and otherwise you would never have an indication. So these are two examples. I think the third one is slightly different in terms of we call it the fifth dimension of observability. It goes back to my energy saving point. We've actually started rolling this out, starting with the Rakuten mobile network in production. In addition to alerts, metrics, logs, events, we now have energy as the fifth dimension of observability. And this is actually starting to become part of our executive dashboard as well. And this is across transmission, core, and the RAN edge, including the cluster layer. And each of those have different teams contributing different either deep learning models or algorithms independent of each other. So what is becoming interesting is that depending on what domain you're targeting for what outcome, you're able to deliver a reasonable step change in either efficiency or insight. And when you aggregate all of this, this is having significant impact across the network.
Ram, as you implement AI across telco networks, certainly there are some challenges there. What are some of the top line challenges?
Absolutely. I think a lot has to do with non-technology challenges, I would say. I think technology is really evolving at a nice pace. What I would say is there are some telcos and big enterprises that are really aligned to a vision, automation as the key vision, right? Top down, left to right, right? But there are lots of companies where it's very fragmented in terms of what the objectives of AI are, what the objectives of automation are, right? That's where the challenges come in because there are different use cases being discussed without a business case in mind. We call practical AI. I mean, you could do AI pretty much with every single use case, but what is practical about it? Is there a business case behind it, right? In terms of savings or monetization, is there a business case behind it? So if an organization is vertically and horizontally aligned to certain goals in terms of phasing and launching new AI use cases, I think that's where it's really, it can take off in a nice way at a faster pace. So the challenge really is the organizations where there's not enough alignment. That's where the challenges come in terms of teams not being aligned to get to a common goal. So that's one of the big challenges. The other is in terms of these different use cases, in terms of operational use cases, where there is savings on energy and simplified operations, get to predictive troubleshooting, things of that sort. There's that piece of it. There is monetization piece because now you have gobs and gobs of data. How do you use it to your advantage and also give customers the quality of service they need for the things that they do, right? And how do you make money out of it from a telco perspective? And also there is the optimization and performance piece, with the given resources you have, whether it's private cloud or public cloud. More importantly, the public cloud, which is expensive, how do you optimize resource usage there and performance without compromising on the user experience? So all of these different things have different use cases. Which ones do you go after first, second, and third, and so on? So that's where the alignment is key. That's what I feel more than the technology challenges. It's the alignment within the telcos that is needed to get this to the next stage.
Caroline, and I'll go down the line here. Certainly AI-powered automation supporting Open RAN and interoperability as well. Some of the efficiencies that Vivek actually mentioned earlier. Again, I'll go down the line, but what are some of those efficiencies that AI is supporting?
I mean, I think Vivek touched a lot of that. The power savings, energy savings in general, automation is tremendous. I think one of the aspects that we got to look at is when we have an open, the true savings really coming from you be able to organize at the rig level, everything driving a really high degree efficiency. The saving is not just coming from CapEx savings, but also very much coming from OpEx savings. I think the telco AI really accelerate that discussion. We almost start taking it for granted that you will be part of that savings. We need to drive that. And then the other thing is because everything started segregated and there's an API that's started coming in, I think it also accelerated the monetization aspect. How do we using the fact that the Open RAN stack is inherently it is aggregated and exposing the API? We ought to be able to, as a industry, to start monetizing our asset. The fact that we have a very deep insights of every data sessions, including enterprise workload that's coming through our network. How do we provide collected data, running data analytics, and driving back as a benefit to the customers, enterprise customers specifically?
Ram, AI-powered automation supporting Open RAN, interoperability, and just efficiencies in general.
Yeah, in terms of interoperability, we talked about digital twinning. I think that is growing really in a multi-vendor perspective. And once we have a digital twin of your network from production to lab, these interoperabilities become much more easier than in the past, right? Because you can simulate use cases, call flows, configurations across multiple vendors, right? And this is not just a day zero, day one problem when you're deploying a network, a brand new network, a cloud native network, but really day 365 and beyond when we're upgrading the network to newer releases, interoperability is key there as well. So once you have a digital twin kind of concept, it becomes much more easier and automatable to get to these new releases quickly in a seamless fashion across multiple vendors. And that's what Open RAN brings in, is the vendor agnostic interfaces, right? So that's from an interoperability perspective. Now, from an energy savings perspective, we talk about cloud native architectures. If a product or a solution is truly microservice, not, we call it cloud washing when a vendor takes basically a product and just containerizes, plops into a container. I mean, it's a container, doesn't give you all the benefits. Now, if you truly microservice it, that's when the benefits come in, because now you can scale these independent components differently. You don't need to scale the entire solution at one time or scale it down. You can just scale what you need to scale up or down, right? So that brings in a lot of efficiencies in terms of energy savings. And also we have heard about use cases, and we have actually seen those in terms of cell phone towers using up a lot of energy, right? In terms of, the wireless carriers are the biggest energy users in certain countries, right? So how do you scale up or down? We have, Intel CPUs that can be put in different states, P states and C states, right up to the CPU level. We can really conserve energy, right? So AI is key to this, optimizing performance while, not compromising on the user experience, but, kind of dialing down and up the network performance.
Vivek?
I think they've pretty much covered it. I think both from a silicon perspective as well as in terms of how some of the real world use cases and gains are being extracted. There is one dimension that I think we probably could spend a minute on additionally, which is using AI to draw insights, which is AI actually has probably, in my personal opinion, the biggest potential is to make you think and figure out things that weren't even on your horizon earlier.
Mm-hmm.
An example of that is, and this is outside of Symphony, but within Rakuten Group, which is a very, very high focus on AI, and Mikitani-san drives AI as a philosophy and a pillar across all group companies. They've actually started using AI in certain parts of the business to even figure out new product introduction. The Rakuten ecosystem, because of all the different businesses it has such a rich sort of data set of consumers and customers that it is now able to create meaningful, personalized product conceptualization sort of hypotheses. And that's the beginning of the new product introduction. Now, if you think about it, you're using all this wealth, which is petabytes of data, not just network, but financial, consumer, etc., what somebody likes to eat. And now you're able to come out with an insight which otherwise was hidden. And this is another way to look at AI, which is a little bit different from just a classic mobile
Right,
network.
so personalized offering
personalized
to me
offering,
as Caroline versus different
exactly.
to
So,
Ron.
for example, whether I use an intelligent dashboard or not, next year at the Rakuten bar, we'll know that we can suggest a drink on the Caroline.
You know what that is?
I know, we know what that is.
I actually have a name for the drink, but I'm going to say it off mic. I'll tell you later. It's a good one.
All right, good.
Inside joke for the rest of us watching this. Vivek, good to have you on the session. Certainly AI from cloud to edge for telcos it's not a topic that's going away anytime soon, so I'm sure we'll talk about the next iteration of that this time next year. So thanks for your time and being here.
Always a pleasure.
Yep. And Ram, as always, thanks for your insights from Ribbon Communications, and also thank you for supporting this session as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Caroline, as always, thanks for your time, and we apologize for bringing everyone out so early.
Well,
On the third day, on top
We
of
made
that.
it.
Yeah, we made it.
We made it.
All right, until next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.